Ohio State trails 3 SEC schools in the 2025 recruiting rankings following signing day, which I know you knew came and passed, right? On Wednesday. And we need to talk about what we can glean from that and what it says in the new era of college football. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching the #1 college football show, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football 24/7, 365 days a year, and we would love for you to hit that subscribe button, like the video, answer the question below. Do you think that it matters that you have a top 5 recruiting class out of high school in this new era of college football? Let me know below. Also, to those of y'all that aren't getting all turned around and twisted up because you don't know what "I'm not on a step mill" means, good for you. Some of y'all are taking it kind of hard. Didn't know they were making that soft. It's out there. I tell people about it from time to time. And you know what? If you are an OG of the channel, you understand why we always are going to talk about the roots that run deep on this show. Now, I was taking a look at the 2025 composite. That's 247 for those of y'all that partake. And I was kind of interested to see just where things ended up, because this has been the most muted signing day week that I can remember in recent years, because frankly, when we moved up the early signing period the first time, we basically made signing day inconsequential. And even so that players that we thought might sign on signing day even took it into the summer so they could get the financial aid agreement, which is not an annual. And this is important. National letter of intent is an annual contract that allows for you to go to school for exactly 1 year, and they have to renew it every year. And there were coaches that use that thing like the sword of Damocles, just be over your head waiting to go in case you needed to be reminded that you are on a year-to-year basis. If I don't want to re-sign you, I don't have to re-sign you. Financial aid agreement puts all that to the past and says, no, we're going to guarantee that you get a set amount of years to graduate from college with us paying your way, right? And then came name, image, and likeness. And then came the transfer portal. I should say transfer portal, then name, image, and likeness, in addition to immediate eligibility. And then we got guys that are graduating with not one, but sometimes 2 graduate degrees before they get up out of here, like Alan Bowman at Oklahoma State, and I hope Cam Rising at Utah. Guys that get to play 6-7 years of football, specifically at the quarterback position. We also have seen high-profile players take themselves into the transfer portal more often than we ever have, even since the dawn of immediate eligibility. Like Barry Alexander is going to play, I believe, at his 3rd different school, USC, Oregon, Georgia. I think he's got 2 stops at Georgia in all of that. And that's just one example. Dylan Gabriel played at 3 schools. You'll know Central Florida, Oklahoma, and Oregon. And there is an arms race to keep the talent that you've already got and cultivated. But last year's signing day was kind of interesting because it, led to Ryan Day famously buckling just before finding out that Jeremiah Smith had indeed signed with Ohio State. And it turned out to be the most important signing of the 2024 season, as that dude made the game-winning reception, a game-sealing reception against Notre Dame, and won Ohio State its first national championship since 2014. Got Ryan Day his first national championship as the head coach. He's in year 7, and got him a remarkable raise where he's going to make $12.5 million annually. Now, taking a look at the 247 2025 rankings, you'll notice that the top 3 schools are Texas, Georgia, and Alabama, which is kind of striking. Texas, I think they're going to be there. It's a team that I would not be shocked to see as the AP #1 in the preseason poll, given what Steve Sarkisian managed to do last year, that he retained Pete Kwiatkowski to coach the defense, that he's got a bunch of those guys that we knew were great on defense coming back, led by Anthony Hill. And, of course, he's got Arch Manning playing quarterback, Ryan Wingo on the outside, get C.J. Baxter back from injury. They ought to be okay. The only question is, what are they going to do at tackle? But they kind of have an answer for that because, well, they got to find out what it's like when their #1 offensive tackle goes down. They got to play without him. And they were in a dogfight with with Ohio State until the end, and they were a college football playoff team. Georgia, it's a team that lost its starting quarterback and had to go to Gunnar Stockton. I don't know that that had as much to do with it as Notre Dame just outplayed Georgia, and Marcus Freeman outcoached Kirby Smart. But you would expect them to do what they have done, which is finish at the top. It's been some time, though, since we talked about Texas finishing with a #1 class, although we used to talk about Texas having a top 5 class year in and year out, doing the least with the most. That's no longer true. Alabama at 3 kind of shocked me just a little bit, given how they ended the season. You take that loss to an Oklahoma team that went 6-7, and then you get beat by a Michigan team that you're probably supposed to beat the brakes off of in the ReliaQuest Bowl, who ain't got no quarterback, with your starting quarterback in Jalen Milroe there. Then you lose Justice Haynes to Michigan. So you got an opening that you can go fill, but you've got guys coming back led by Ryan Williams on that offense. Ohio State is Ohio State, right? We understand that it was a senior-laden group from last year, a remarkably experienced group last year, and they're going to be turning over the reins to Julian Sayin. We think at quarterback, you're going to have new starter at tailback, probably not one, but two. Yes, two new bell cow backs back there. I think C.J. Donaldson and James People have an opportunity to do that. Max Clare joins from Purdue. Wide receivers, you know about Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis. And then defensively, you're going to basically turn over your defensive line, which is what Larry Johnson Sr. is supposed to do, right? Put those guys in the NFL, recruit the next group, develop the next group, send them to the NFL's first-round picks. Add in this, Ohio State has had at least one first-round draft pick in every single season that Ryan Day has been head coach, and that seems like it's going to keep up going into the 2025 NFL draft. Then number 5, you got Oregon, who I think has gone a long way to make themselves known and that they're staying put. They're right here banging on the door of playing for a national championship and perhaps winning the first one in school history. Dan Lanning able to keep Will Stein, which I think was a boon. Tosh LaPoise returning as defense coordinator, but we all know Dan Lanning is a defensive-minded coach. They are aggressive. They will go at people. They're also going to be new at quarterback. Dante Moore is very talented, not unlike Julian Sayin. You're going to have great players at wide receiver, led by Evan Stewart. DeCorian Moore joins up. And then defensively, I think they're just going to be so stout with Dylan Thieneman and Bear Alexander as well. And then you can go a ways before you get to see teams that played in the Final Four and in the college football playoff. Check this out. At 11, we get Tennessee. At 12, we get Notre Dame. And at 15, we get Penn State, who was just 2 spots above, say, Oklahoma, which was not very good in 2024. They needed to recruit the hell out of high school because had so many guys just decide to elect to leave for one reason or another. And you're turning over both coordinators, and Brent Venables is installing himself as defensive coordinator, play caller for the 2025 season because this is a year in which they got to have it. I think philosophically, we know that high school recruiting rankings don't mean as much for 2 reasons. One, more guys enter the portal than ever before. So the idea that you're going to see that guy get to year 3, which is, I think, all you could hope for in the first place, and play all 3 years at the same place is going down. We don't see that as often. Number 2 here is guys are playing for longer amounts of time. They're finding ways to gain eligibility. Think about Diego Pavia and how he got an injunction that's going to allow him to continue to play at Vanderbilt. Think about the 7th-year players that came out of the COVID year where everybody got that year back, and now we've seen guys play for 5, 6, 7 years more often than we ever have. The average age of the player is going up. And most of the recruiting and the scholarships had been taken for by transfer players. If you can go get a seasoned veteran, that's what you're going to do. That's what most general managers and player personnel folks are going to do. That's also another reason why high school football recruiting has not been so strong, though it is strong. General managers have more time and more people and more resources to go and source great players at the FCS, Group of 5, and even Power 4 levels and see who they could add for this amount of money or that amount of money. So it's less about being able to go into a living room and sell a kid on an idea and more about how many variables are in the equation. And by variables, I do mean dinero. I do mean money. I mean greenbacks. I mean frog skins. I mean Wolf of Wall Street type of money is changing hands here to get guys onto campus. I just think it's indicative of the times. You don't actually have to have a top 10 or top 5 recruiting class to play for a national championship. Notre Dame just proved that. You don't have to have that to play in or you don't have to go get that, I should say, the following year. You don't have to go get it if you're Penn State. If you feel like you're well coached and you feel like you got good players, you can do what Michigan did, which was take a bunch of guys that were blue chips, right, 4 stars, and go win a national championship in 2023. I also think that when we start talking about high school football recruiting, sometimes we go too far in one direction. I don't think it's going away. I think it's just not as important as it once was, which is to say it used to be the most important part of your recruiting strategy. That was true. It's no longer the most important part of your recruiting strategy. I think more folks are going to go with what Prime was able to do at Jackson State, what he's able to do at Colorado, which is go 40-40-20. You want 40, right? Power 4 vets. You want 40% grad transfers or transfers, and then you want 20% to be high school football players that you know have the capability to help you right away because you cannot count on having them more than 1 year. And frankly, you might not want to have them for more than 1 year. So while Ohio State does trail 3 schools, including 3 SEC teams, it is no longer indicative of what the status quo, of what the hierarchy is. Feels like the new status quo is leaning toward the Big Ten is about to have a moment as it's won the last 2 national championships and the SEC got boxed out of the college football playoff for the first time in years. Interesting stuff here.